Good evening, and thanks for joining us. I'm Maria Parham, editorial page editor for the Arizona Daily Star and host of AZ Illustrated Metro. Tonight, we're looking into a new plan to improve the economic tie between Mexico and the United States.
Economic growth is going to drive down violence. When we have opportunities for young people, when we have trade going through fluently, then opportunities are going to make the violence go down as they do in all developed countries.
We'll see how two Arizona counties are approaching the issue of school safety.
I decided instead of just talking about the problem to do something about it. We do have our volunteer posse at the malls during the holidays. I decided to transition them to start patrolling the outside of the schools that are in our area.
And check in on some spring elections in southern Arizona. But first, a look at today's top stories.
President Obama is taking his sequestration fight to the nation's governors, including Governor Jan Brewer. He spoke today to the members of the National Governors Association during their meeting in Washington, D.C. He told the governors he wants them to go to Capitol Hill and urge the members of Congress to pass a budget bill before the mandatory cuts go into effect. Governor Brewer told the Cronkite News Service she wasn't impressed.
As a leader, you want all the help you can get, so you call out to anybody that will listen. I think that it's probably asking a little bit much, maybe of us Republicans at least, to go up there because the deal was done and he made the deal, and now he should do his job and get us out of this mess.
The White House released a list of state-by-state cuts as a result of sequestration. Brewer admits she's worried.
I'm more concerned about the cuts given to the economy, the loss of jobs in Arizona, because we've worked so hard, and we know that businesses like Raytheon, the defense arm that we have in Arizona, will take substantial hits.
If there is no budget action in Washington, the mandatory budget cuts go into effect on Friday. The Attorney General's race in Arizona is kicking off. Democrat Felicia Rodolini officially filed the paperwork today, opening her campaign for the state's top attorney in the 2014 election cycle. Rodolini ran for the same position in 2010, eventually losing in the general election to current Attorney General Tom Horne. Horne filed his paperwork to run for re-election in 2011. In recent months, however, he's found himself at the center of an FBI investigation for alleged campaign violations. Currently, Horne and Rodolini are the only two candidates for Attorney General. And that's a look at tonight's headlines.
Arizona is directly tied to Mexico through business, travel, and culture. Mexico's new president recently signed a major reform plan. The Mexican government says this plan will bring more opportunities for American companies to do business south of the border. Fernanda Echavarri reports.
Señoras y señores, muy buenas tardes a todas y a todos.
Enrique Peña Nieto is Mexico's new president. He represents the PRI, Mexico's political party that ruled the country for 7 straight decades until 2000. In his first month in office, Peña Nieto signed the Pacto por México, or Pact for Mexico, that brought together the country's 3 major political parties, something that had never been done before.
Now, what this means is that the gridlock that we've been having in the previous administrations has been dealt with.
Alfonso De Alba, deputy consul at the Mexican consulate in Tucson, says the agreement has 95 reforms. Every single one has a set timeline for when the Mexican president wants to see changes. The plan lays out improvements to job growth, transparency and corruption, civil rights, and security.
The thing that this government has chosen to do is not give the security issues the highest priority, given that that is being dealt with. We're going to have a new national police force. The state police forces are going to be paired up so that everybody has the same procedures and the rule of law can be applied evenly. We're also going to be changing the court systems. But the real focus that this government wants to do, and something that is seen both in California and Texas and Arizona, is that the economic links between the U.S. and Mexico are just vital, and economic growth is going to drive down violence. When we have opportunities for young people, when we have trade going through fluently, then opportunities are going to make the violence go down as they do in all developed countries.
He says some of the changes in Mexico's economy will directly affect Arizona businesses.
First of all, we're going to have banking reform in Mexico where private commercial banks are going to be able to lend more easily. That's going to be a boon to the manufacturing sector down in Nogales, right across the border, but also the rest of Sonora and the rest of Mexico.
He says these changes in manufacturing will bring opportunities for Americans who want to invest in Mexico.
What's really going to be important for Americans, given the situation of the economy here, is that Mexico is really picking up speed. We're going through an economic renaissance. Now, given that we're a lot closer than some other companies in Asia, and that we have a culture of understanding between our nations, it just really makes sense that manufacturing can go on in Mexico with American designers and also producers. One has to take into account that a lot of the production, actually most of the production in Mexico, is made with American parts. So it's really a symbiotic relationship, and as the Mexican economy picks up, there's going to be a lot of opportunities.
Most people in Mexico will be affected by these reforms in one way or another. De Alba says Arizona residents will also have a role as Mexico evolves.
We're going to have a lot more dialogue with people here in southern Arizona. We have a very fruitful relationship with the government here, and we're also going to be looking to expand our activities to deal with the business community in southern Arizona and try to make the matches that need to be made so that people from here have counterparts in Mexico and that dialogue is increased.
This is something U.S. officials also want to promote. Tucson Mayor Jonathan Rothschild has been working with Mexican officials to strengthen economic ties and build new opportunities.
In recent months, officials at all levels of government have been discussing school safety. In Arizona, law enforcement departments are taking different approaches to prepare for possible threats. Before we begin Christopher Conover's report, we want to let viewers know this package contains footage of news reports on the Newtown shooting and video of simulated school shootings.
And then at 9:40 a.m., shots rang out.
The school shootings in Newtown, Connecticut captured the attention of the nation, while at the same time horrifying all those who heard the details.
Sources are saying at least 20, but perhaps closer to 30 individuals, many of them children, have been killed in this incident.
The aftermath of the school shooting brought about a new wave of public statements and concerns about school safety. States, school districts, and local municipalities are all taking different approaches on how to best protect children. In Maricopa County, Sheriff Joe Arpaio is using his all-volunteer posse.
I decided, instead of just talking about the problem, to do something about it. We do have our volunteer posse at the malls during the holidays. I decided to transition them to start patrolling the outside of the schools that are in our area.
The posse is made up of approximately 3,000 volunteers. About 500 of them are trained to use weapons.
My posse is well trained. They operate under the supervision of the sheriff under the Constitution. And they have authority when we mobilize them, the same as a law enforcement. I don't think we have to worry about our posse. They've been around for years at the malls and everything else. We haven't had any incident. I don't know what you're...
But to be prepared to handle a school shooter, posse members need specialized training. On a recent Saturday, the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office took over a closed school in Fountain Hills to train posse members how to deal with what for parents, students, and school officials is the unthinkable, an active shooter in the schools. The first scenario took place outside as protesters jeered from across the street. Then the training moved inside to a hallway with a new scenario involving a pipe bomb explosion and hostage taking. The shooters in all the training scenarios were using guns that fired blanks or paint-filled bullets. The third scenario involved 2 shooters in the school cafeteria. The use of volunteer posse members raises questions about why sworn Maricopa County deputies are not being used instead.
Well, you know what? We don't have the budget. The volunteer posse, they pay for everything. Their airplanes, their guns, their bullets, and everything else. I don't have the money for this program. Maybe the President of the United States can cut loose with a little money that gives us the opportunity to put law enforcement people in the schools. Until that happens, we're going to be outside the schools with our volunteer posse.
Fellow Americans.
In the State of the Union address, President Obama didn't bring up money for officers in schools, but school safety did come up in the context of a larger gun control debate.
It has been 2 months since Newtown. I know this is not the first time this country has debated how to reduce gun violence. But this time is different. Overwhelming majorities of Americans, Americans who believe in the Second Amendment, have come together around common sense reform, like background checks that will make it harder for criminals to get their hands on a gun.
Closer to home, Tucson Mayor Jonathan Rothschild is trying to find money for the police department to put officers back in schools.
With, the horror of Newtown, okay, and we have now gotten the president to say that as part of his overall program, he wants to see, and it was I'm not remembering the number now, but it was very substantial because it was for the whole country, money used for school resource officers. Our governor, Governor Brewer, has said the same. She has said to me personally, it seems like they're a lot better idea than arming teachers. It's a place where I'm agreeing with the governor. And so if we can get the money from the federal government, if we can get the money from the state government, I can tell you our officers are ready to serve and want to do it.
Stephen, if you want to.
While the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office is holding news conferences, including Hollywood stars, and inviting the media to training sessions, the Pima County Sheriff's Office is taking a different approach. Pima County's training for school shooting responses focuses on what people on the scene should be doing between when 911 is called and the first law enforcement personnel arrive.
It's broken down in basically three different actions that you can take. Get out of there is the best option, really. I mean, if you're not even there to be in danger, then don't be there. And again, it's slightly different with schools because now you're talking about a kindergarten class where you got maybe 20, 25 kids in there, and you have to get all of those kindergartners out into a safe area. That's difficult to do.
Stuckey says if you can't do that, find someplace safe to hide.
Lock yourself in an office, in a classroom, someplace where you can at least secure yourself as best as possible. Now, that's not always a guarantee because there have been instances, in fact, I think to Virginia Tech, where basically there were people that were locked in a classroom, thought that they were safe, and the bad guy was still able to get in there and harm people. So it's not a guarantee, but again, it's the next best action.
And if all else fails, fight back.
Even though you might place yourself at risk by engaging with the bad guy, if that is your last option, it's better than hiding under the desk and just waiting to be found and potentially killed. So, that's not preferable. We don't want people to play the action hero and get themselves killed. But if you're out of options, if you've tried to leave and you can't, you've maybe tried to find a secure location and the bad guy has gotten in. Fight back, do something. You have to act to save yourself and others.
But those actions are meant only until law enforcement arrives. Pima County deputies also train for those scenarios.
We think back to right after Columbine, and the notion of active shooter response kind of became a training point across the country. So we trained specifically for that after then, and it's been a recurring training topic for us at the patrol level, but basically all deputies get the same basic training.
While Lieutenant Stuckey doesn't necessarily want you or I to be what he calls an action hero, the same, he says, is not true for deputies.
It might be, you know, if I'm the first on scene and I know that I'm not going to have anybody else there for another 2 to 3 minutes, which in the grand scheme of things is not a long time, but when you're talking about an active shooter, that's a long time, and that's a lot of potential victims that I might have to go by myself. We need to impart upon our deputies out in the field. You might have to take action by yourself. It may be just you and one other, but the longer we wait, the more potential victims we have. We have to act as soon as possible.
Officials with the Pima County Sheriff's Office say they will continue to use empty school buildings in the summer for school shooter training.
President Obama met with the nation's governors today and painted a gloomy picture of federal spending cuts that are set to kick in Friday. Good evening, I'm Judy Woodruff.
And I'm Ray Suarez. On the NewsHour tonight, we get an update on the potential impact of the sequester if the White House and Congress can't work out a compromise.
Then Margaret Warner looks into the troubles looming for the Catholic Church ahead of electing a new pope.
A Cuba without a Castro in charge? We talk with Senator Patrick Leahy, who just returned from the island after an unsuccessful attempt to secure the release of an imprisoned American.
Fred DeSam Lazaro reports on India's push to account for hundreds of millions of its citizens by issuing government identity cards.
We talk with reporter Stephen Brill about his Time magazine cover story on why medical bills are so high.
And on the Daily Download, Christina Bellantoni examines White House efforts to circumvent the press through technology. That's all ahead on tonight's NewsHour.
700 years ago, a very unusual man became pope.
Celestine, during his life as a hermit, would sleep on bare rock in a cave on the side of a mountain.
This man accepted leadership of the Vatican, then resigned after 5 months. I'm Steve Inskeep, a pope who set the precedent for Benedict to quit, on the next morning edition from NPR News.
It's election time for 3 local governments in the Tucson metro area. Andrea Kelly has a review of which council seats are up and who is running for office in Marana, South Tucson, and Sahuarita.
Marana has 4 seats up for election on its 7-member council. The 4-year terms are staggered, so elections for the other 3 seats were held in 2011. 3 incumbents and 3 challengers are vying for those 3 open seats. The incumbents who are seeking re-election are Patty Comerford, Herb Kai, Carol McGorray, and John Post. 2 challengers, Kent Krotz and David Morales, hope to unseat incumbents. Marana's elections are nonpartisan, so the candidates do not run with a party affiliation. Voters can choose 3 candidates because there are 3 seats up for election. If 1, 2, or 3 candidates win more than 50% of the vote, they will automatically be elected to a seat. If none of the candidates get more than 50% of the vote, all 6 could move on to the May general election, where the top 4 vote earners would be elected. Marana also has some ballot propositions for voters to contemplate. Marana voters are being asked whether they want the town to run 2 sewer plants. The state legislature passed a law last year allowing the town to take over county-owned sewer plants. Though the law passed, the town is asking voters what they want in order to confirm the decision and as a potential guard against legal challenges. The town wants to raise the state-mandated spending threshold for next fiscal year. Cities and towns are allowed to spend only a certain amount of money each year, as defined by a formula in state law. Many local governments bring in more than that and wish to spend the money they raise from taxes. This requires a vote from residents to authorize the higher spending and is scheduled for the May election. It would not authorize a change in tax rates. In South Tucson, 3 seats are up for election to the city council. Just as in Marana, any candidate who receives more than 50% of the vote in the March primary is automatically elected to a seat. As many as 2 people for each other seat can move on to the May general elections. Incumbents John Felix, Carlos Salas, and Pete Tadeo are running for another 4-year term, and 3 people are hoping to replace them. They are Ildefonso Green, Vanessa Mendoza, and Oscar Patino. The 1 square mile city is also asking voters to increase its spending limits, similar to the town of Marana. The request of voters does not come with new or increased taxes, but would allow the city to spend money it already takes in that exceeds state spending limits. Voters will be asked to approve this in the May general election. Farther south in Sahuarita, there are 4 seats up for election this year. 3 are seats that were due to come up for election now, and 1 seat is up halfway through the term to fill a vacancy. The 3 up for regular election have 3 candidates running, so it's likely they will each be elected to a 4-year term. Those 3 are 2 incumbents, Dwayne Bloomberg and Kara Egbert. The 3rd candidate is Tom Murphy. He's not already on the council. For the 4th seat, 3 people are running to finish the final 2 years of a term. Former council member Phil Conklin resigned because he moved out of the town. Gil Lusk was appointed to fill the seat until this election. 2 others join him in running for those other 2 years of the term. They are Joshua Matthews, who's on the council now, and Don Woolley, who is seeking election.
And now, Andrea Kelly joins us for more analysis of these elections and the role they play in regional governance. Thanks for coming on today. Andrea, can you tell me, why do these elections in Marana, South Tucson, and in Sahuarita, why do they matter to people all over the valley?
Well, you've got a point. Not everybody can vote in these elections, but each of these governments is involved in several different regional forms of government that we have in the area. One of the top being PAG, the Pima Association of Governments. That organization takes the federal transportation money that we get from the Federal Department of Transportation and distributes it through the whole region to all the local jurisdictions, including Pima and Tucson, the biggest, and then the smaller jurisdictions, the 3 you mentioned, in Oro Valley, the Indian reservations that are near, and distributes that money. They also do some environmental programs with federal funding, and each of the mayors of each of these jurisdictions is a member of that board. So there are decisions that are made there are regional decisions made about how to spend our money that everybody contributes to. So even if you don't live in the areas where there is an election, they might be involved in a decision that affects you. That's true also of the Regional Transportation Authority, which is also the same board of mayors from the area. There are also some other organizations, including the Metropolitan Tucson Convention and Visitors Bureau, which we shorten to MTCVB, and that organization is charged with bringing tourism to the area, getting people to come here, spend money here, find out why it's so great to live here. Sometimes people move here after that. And the Tucson Regional Economic Opportunities Organization, which is economic development. And a lot of the smaller governments in the region contribute financially to those organizations and also sit on the boards. So there's a lot of ways decisions are made by officials in the smaller governments that impact us.
Now, these are the primary elections, and when is it that the final election is coming up?
That's right, March 12th, the upcoming primary, and then the general election is May 21st.
And when these candidates are elected, there's some doubt about just how long they're going to be in office. Can you explain to us what's going on there?
Sure, it's a little bit complicated. Last year, the Arizona legislature passed a bill, and Governor Brewer signed it into law, saying that all local elections need to be held in even-numbered years and in the fall. So that would be just like when our congressional and state elections are held. We just got through the 2012 fall elections. But as we see, these Marana, Oro Valley, Sahuarita, South Tucson hold their elections in the springtime. The 3 that are up right now hold them in the spring of odd-numbered years. And the law says they need to be switched to even-numbered years. So the uncertainty is, the people who get elected this March or May, do they serve until 2016 or do they serve until 2018? The 4-year term would end in 17, so is it going to be shorter or longer? And there's a lot of uncertainty about how that's going to get worked out and whether the state law will change again before the next election cycle.
Well, let's move on then to the big issue that's on the Marana ballot. And it's something that people all over the valley have heard about the wastewater treatment program there and the plant. Can you explain what that issue is and what voters will be deciding?
Sure. There are two questions on the Marana ballot about two wastewater treatment facilities. The question to Marana voters is, do you want the town to have the ability to take these over, to take ownership of those and run those? And it's an issue that also goes back a few years. The town tried to take control of some wastewater treatment facilities through annexation. Those facilities are owned by Pima County, and there was a lawsuit about whether they could go to the town or what the town would have to pay if it wanted to buy them. Years of court battles over that. And eventually the county won. The court said these are county-owned facilities, and unless the town buys them, including all the debt that's still outstanding on the maintenance and building of those facilities, that they would be owned by the county. Then another state law was passed that said no, Marana could buy those. So it's been back and forth, and now I think in an effort to try and settle this issue, Marana's taking it to its voters to say, what do you want us to do? We tried to interview the officials in Marana and also the county administrator, and they didn't want to comment on this election, even though they've talked a lot over the years about the implications of this kind of a decision. But for this story and for right now, they said they just want to leave it to voters.
The outcome, how does that affect the actual residents of Marana?
A couple different ways. Number one, the reason anybody wants to take control of a wastewater facility is that once you clean the water, you own the clean water. And a lot of jurisdictions are responsible for recharging the aquifers from the water that they pull out and use. Marana wants to use that water for that purpose. Also, there's some implications for development. If you're in charge of the wastewater treatment facility, you can decide who gets wastewater connections. So if a new developer wants to come and build a big housing development in Marana, the town could, if it owned the sewer facility, decide whether to grant those connections, as opposed to leaving that as a county decision now.
Well, thanks so much for coming back on the show tonight after your other reporting and giving us a more in-depth look of what's going on with these elections.
Anytime.
State lawmakers are parsing through hundreds of bills introduced this legislative session. Some bills are getting more coverage than others, and now we have an update on some of that pending legislation. House Bill 2656 would allow guns in schools if they are assigned to a designated employee. If the bill is passed into law, it would be subject to approval by each school district's governing board. There are conditions that would apply to having a gun in a school, including 24 hours of state training and a background check. The firearms would also have to be stored in a secure, locked place. The bill has not yet had a hearing in the legislature. House Bill 2657 came out of Governor Jan Brewer's committee to simplify the state's complicated tax code. Brewer has called Arizona's sales tax system one of the most complicated in the country. It would overhaul the construction tax, which is collected now at the point of construction in the city or town where a new building is going up. Instead, that tax would be collected wherever the construction materials are sold. It would also shift sales tax collection to the state, whereas many local governments collect their own sales taxes instead of getting them remitted from the state later. The bill has passed one House committee, but unless it is changed to satisfy more cities, it could be stalled.